Hello. On today's show, we have parents who lost loved ones due to violence, and now they are helping others who experience the same thing. Stay tuned to Protect Our Community. Hello, and welcome to Protect Our Community. I'm your host, Bryan Coyle. Our goal is to improve the quality of living by giving you the knowledge of the agencies and the organizations that are here to protect you and your community. On today's show, we have Executive Director Melany P. Nelson from Northwest Victim Services. She will tell us how she helps victims of violent crimes, and we'll hear from two relatives who lost their loved ones from violence. They are Robin Cooper and Shamika Smith. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So Melany, tell me, how did you get involved with Northwest Services?
So I've been involved with Northwest Victim Services for years, probably almost 27 years. My mother was the previous executive director, and I started out in high school just volunteering.
Oh, so how did your mother start?
So my mother started as a volunteer, became a board member, became the board president, the ED, and I did the same exact thing, but it wasn't planned.
Oh, okay. So can you explain to us what your agency actually does?
Sure. So we help victims of crime within the Northwest section of Philadelphia. All of our services are free. We work very closely with the 5th, 14th, 35th, and 39th police districts. So we help all victims and witnesses of crime with unpaid medical bills, lost time from work, funeral expenses, counseling, relocation, mileage, loss of support. And we're also in the Criminal Justice Center 3 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday.
Wow, that's a lot of work.
It's a whole lot of work.
And I'm sure it's very needed for the community.
Yes.
So how many victims do you deal with on an average basis?
So yearly, we probably service over 2,000 in court, and then we probably service about 200 to 300 in filing claims on a yearly basis.
So what kind of crimes do you deal with the victims?
So it's all types of crimes, but within this last fiscal year for us, we've seen a lot of assaults and a lot of homicides.
As far as assaults, is it like sexual assaults or
It could be
battery?
any type of assault, not so much sexual assault, but ours would be physical assault.
Your organization has a mission statement and a vision statement,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
I think we have that.
Yeah, so our mission is to provide prompt, effective, and holistic services to all victims of crime in the Northwest section of Philadelphia while increasing prevention strategies to elevate community safety.
And the vision?
To permanently alter the way we treat victims of crime in the Northwest section of Philadelphia.
So over 2,000. So when do you have time and who helps you?
So we have a very small staff. It's only 5, including me. So we receive funding from PCCD, and we also receive funding from the district attorney's office, which is not a lot. So that's why we rely on fundraisers. So we have our annual fundraisers to be able to continue to offer free services to victims of crime. Victims don't have to pay anything when they're nothing when they're accessing our services. And we also have the free counseling, which they really take advantage of.
So with the counseling, explain what kind of counseling is that?
So it's trauma counseling, and we have one-on-one.
One-on-one?
Yes.
But that's very hard to find, especially for free.
Exactly.
That's an awesome service.
It's wonderful.
So with your volunteers, how do you find your volunteers, and do you have to go through any type of training?
So with our volunteers, we like to have community members, and we also want to have people who have been through traumatic experiences. It's kind of like peer counseling. So who can better service another victim than someone who has gone through something themselves? So Deborah Grooms, who is an officer at the 14th Police District, who is dynamic. So she has her own story to tell, but she volunteers with Northwest Victim Services. Shamika is volunteering with Northwest Victim Services. So We welcome any and everyone. So with our staff, they do have to go through a 40-hour training in Harrisburg to be able to provide direct services to victims of crime. But our volunteers will go through training with me.
So can you touch a little bit about what type of training they go through in Harrisburg?
So it's a 40-hour training. It's very extensive. So I think it's two to 3 days that they go through, and they learn everything from victim services that they need.
So I believe we have some pictures that you sent us through your years of service. Can we get those?
That's my mommy, who was the previous executive director for Northwest Victim Services. That's Lisa, who you'll hear more about her story in a little while.
And what's going on over there?
So Northwest Victim Services actually received toys from the Eastern State Penitentiary. They had an influx of toys, and they asked us, could we use some toys? And it was, oh my goodness, it was wonderful. So we were able to provide toys to family members who have lost a loved one, but they had children. So we played Santa for a day, which was awesome.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it was great. That was Stephen Kinsey had a public hearing on the victim services and what they have to offer and what's lacking within the community, which was great. So I was testifying at that hearing.
So you testify at the hearings for the officials to hear what you guys need to help victims in Philadelphia, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so what kind of things do you need?
Funding.
Funding.
Which would be great for us to continue to offer free services to victims of crime. So again, it's only 5 of us. And I don't work 9 to 5 or Monday through Friday. So I work on the weekends, I work in the evenings, and to be able to provide services around the clock. So it would be great if I could hire some more staff members.
That would be excellent.
Yeah, but we need funding for that.
Oh, I hear that.
Yeah.
Do we have any more pictures? Oh, we got some more pictures.
Yeah, so that's Movita, who was the director of victim witnesses at the DA's office, but she is now the state rep in West Philly.
Okay.
And then that's the mayor. So that was a press conference that they had where the mayor and the DA wants the toy shops to stop selling toy guns that look like real guns.
So have you had any situation lately with that, with toys, fake toys being sold, or I say fake guns being sold to kids in the stores? Any success with getting that stopped?
I think they made great leadway, but unfortunately, no, we don't see that in the northwest section of Philadelphia. Unfortunately, they have real guns, and we've seen just an influx of assault victims and homicide victims.
So I understand you have some other training, more proactive training that you provide to the community?
So when you say other training?
As far as with the kids, do you have training for the kids or community involvement?
So we do have community involvement. We have a community program, Stand for Something, where we go into the Philadelphia schools and the rec centers and we educate the students on victimization and bullying. We have Senior for Safety, where we go into the senior homes and we educate the seniors on scams. They're scammed out of millions and millions of dollars a year. And then we have domestic violence workshops.
Can you talk a little bit about the domestic violence, because I know that's a huge issue that that we do have.
It's very, very huge. And Lisa, who could not be here, she lost her daughter to domestic violence, and her ex-boyfriend decided to come up to her job, and he physically beat her, and then he stabbed her multiple times, and then so much that the knife broke off in her back. That wasn't enough. Then he went and got his Chevy Avalanche truck and rolled over her multiple times. So she passed away from domestic violence.
That's awful for a parent to go through that and to see their daughter brutally murdered like that. What happened to that individual?
So he decided after he did that he was going to get on the highway, because it was in Plymouth meeting, and he set himself on fire. But it just so happens that his car crashed and the officers were able to apprehend him. So he is now waiting trial.
Wow. And she volunteers with you.
She does. Actually, Lisa works for one of the state reps, and I forgot her name. Maybe we can get her name. Bullock, State Representative Bullock.
Okay.
So she works for a state rep, and she was at work one day. She saw officers coming into the office, and she's thinking they're just going to come in as normal, and they asked that they speak with her in the conference room. She's thinking that they're going to speak about someone else, and they had to tell her that her daughter was brutally murdered.
Wow. So what kind of advice can you give to victims out there that may not have reached out to a victim service unit within the city?
It is an awesome program. We are here to help. The counseling, take advantage of the counseling to be able to help you. You'll never be able to fill a void if you've lost a loved one, but the counseling can help you through your journey. And then we're able to file a claim for you to get back any out-of-pocket expenses, any missed time from work, or any funeral expenses that you had to pay for.
So how does that work? Can you briefly explain that?
So it comes through the Victims Compensation Program, which is in Harrisburg, so it's Fed money. So what happens is we file a claim for the families. So my first step would be to see if there are any lost wages for mom or dad, whoever the guardian is who was making the funeral arrangements. And we'll get their last 2 pay stubs right before the incident. I get the police report, and then any funeral expenses, and I'll work with the funeral home to be able to get that information as well. But we get all of the information and gather it and send it to Harrisburg.
And did they determine to make the payments?
Correct. Now, there is one stipulation. The victim cannot have any involvement in the victimization. So I can't come and knock you off your chair and then you knock me off my chair and then I say I'm a victim. So you can't have any involvement in the victimization. And you have to file a police report within 72 hours, not unless there are extenuating circumstances, like if you're in a hospital and you're not coherent.
Now, do they have to press charges as well?
Definitely. They definitely do.
Well, that's great information for the public to know. We're going to take a short break, and when we get back, we'll talk with Northwest Victim Services a little bit more.
Northwest Victim Services is actually the first victim-based agency created and dedicated to helping victims of crime within the city of Philadelphia. All of our services are free. So we help victims of crime with unpaid medical bills, lost time from work, funeral expenses, counseling, mileage, child care, relocation. And we're also in the Criminal Justice Center 3 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. It's just 5 of us in the Northwest Victim Services office. There's 2 victim advocates, 1 courtroom advocate, and 1 administrative assistant. My mom started volunteering with Northwest Victim Services in the 80s, shortly after it began. And I followed in her footsteps, which was not planned at all. I started when I was in high school. I would assist my mom with fundraising, and then years later, they were looking for an administrative assistant. So I was the interim administrative assistant, and then also helped with youth programs that my mother would have. So I've started in the 80s. And working for a nonprofit, we don't make a lot of money. So the people who are in this line of work, you're in this line of work because this is the passion that you have. So I live, breathe, eat, sleep Northwest Victim Services. Do you know what I look for when I'm driving through neighborhoods? I'm looking for the teddy bears and the candles, and I'm like, oh my goodness, somebody was just murdered right there. That was somebody's child. That was somebody's brother. So because I'm focused on crime every day, all day, that's what I focus on, crime every day, all day. Certain sections of Melany partner with Town Watch. So they have blocks and residents who take turns looking out the window or walking up and down their street. We don't want anyone to be in harm's way. So if you happen to see something that's suspicious, you call 911 because that's what they're there for. We need the other communities within the Northwest section of Philadelphia to be like Melany, to have these community meetings, to let people know that there are residents that are concerned about what's going on in their community. So this stuff does not happen every day.
Welcome back to Protect Our Community. I'm your host, Bryan Coyle. I've been talking with Melany Nelson and volunteers of Northwest Victim Services. So, ladies, can you please share your story with us and how you got involved with Northwest Victim Services?
Well, my story started November 28th, around 11 o'clock in the evening, when my family received a call that my nephew was murdered inside of a friend's house. Apparently, there was a disagreement or something where the purported friend came to the house. He said he was robbed. He wanted my nephew and my nephew's friend to go out with him to find whoever robbed him. They said no, they were not going. He was extremely agitated. They were trying to calm him down. He went into the bathroom, came back out, and he just started shooting. He shot and killed my nephew, and he shot and the other gentleman as well. And the only thing is, the other person didn't die. And he's been able to share some of the story of what happened.
That must have been horrible to receive that news. How are you dealing with this grief?
I think it's a day-to-day process.
Day-to-day process.
It's a day-to-day process. You know, you do have support services. When it did occur, I went to the medical examiner's office. I had to identify the body and, pictures of the body. And at that point, they called Melany from Northwest Victim Services, and she came to my office and walked me through some of the things that I needed to do in order to, to receive some assistance and some help with my nephew.
If I take you back at that time, when Melany contacted you, how did you feel?
I think I was in shock, just not knowing what was going on and what to do. Like, what are the next steps? Who do you call? Which funeral home? My nephew was 23, so he had his whole life ahead of him. He was the father of 3 girls. So I just think, like, pretty much shock of, what do you do next? So I honestly don't know. And as a businesswoman, working every day, you think that it's easy for you to go through the steps. But I just think that by having Northwest, Victim Services there to support, it was easy for me to pick up the phone and say, I can't do this today. Can you help me out?
Were you able to take advantage of the counseling that they provide?
Yes.
And do you feel that's been helping you?
Well, I haven't gone yet, but I think in February I said to my mother, I think I need to go to counseling.
Okay. So Melany, it sounds like you really make a difference in somebody's life, trying to help them through a most difficult time. You're like a saint?
Well, I don't know if I'm like a saint, but when I was in contact with Robin, I said to her, I'll come to you. So I try not to have my victims come to my office. It's nothing for me to get in my Ford Escape and tear up Philadelphia to meet my victims where they are. So I called my courtroom advocate, Whitney Lewis-Sant, and I said, listen, we need to go see this young lady to be able to provide services to her.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that with us and with the public. And hopefully they'll take, for those who might need that service, that they'll reach out due to your testimony. Robin Cooper, may you share your situation? I'm sorry. Ms. Smith.
I met Melany in October of 2018 when my son was murdered. He was a junior at Frankfurt High School. That particular day, he was in the northeast section of Philadelphia, and he was shot once in the head. I wasn't living at my residence at the time, so I was going back to my home to actually check the mail when a police officer approached my residence to inform me that my son had been shot. He was shot on the 11th of October, and he fought for his life until he passed away on the 15th. When I met Melany, she actually came and met me at the hospital. So at first contact, I instantly felt she was very supportive and that she was willing to at least try to sympathize with what it was that I was going through and to make my burden as easy as possible. Melany has came out to my house for several reasons. Melany has always been available to answer the phone for me, whether it be day or night. She assisted with me and my family with counseling services, which I did take advantage of. Unfortunately, I can't get my other children to be as open. And the counseling sessions were very helpful. The therapist that one of the therapists that I met that they had on staff was very understanding, very patient to what it is that I was going through at the particular time. So I do owe a lot of credit to Northwest Victim Services for just helping me keep my sanity and get through the process of losing my son, and also helping me with keeping his name in a positive light, because at that particular time there were a lot of behind the scene details that were going on where my son was the victim and he was still being victimized after his murder. So Northwest Victim Services, like I said, she's kind of like a part of my family. They will help to any extent that they can, whether it be to speak to you on the phone, to assist you with reimbursement for funeral expenses, for medical expenses, anything that you can possibly think of. Miss Melany is going to try to find a way to assist you and your family.
So now you're involved with Northwest Victim Services.
Yes.
That's correct. So has this involvement helped you cope with your grief?
It helped tremendously. In the beginning, there were times where I was severely depressed. I couldn't speak about it without crying, shaking. And she's helped me get through that just with speaking, and also feeling as though my son's name has a purpose and I'm doing it for him to help other families, whether it be by speaking with them or just sharing my story, to get them to understand that there are people who will help you. There are people who will listen and who will support you.
The person who caused this pain in your life, has he been convicted?
Yes, he has. He accepted a deal on October the 8th of this year, and he was charged with the murder of my son, along with the attempted murder of 2 other children, and he received 21 years to 44 years.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
has the person who caused this pain to you and your family with your nephew, has he been brought to justice?
The trial has just started. The preliminary was just, he's pleading not guilty. And, I think just sitting there in the courtroom, there were no winners, because while my nephew's whole family was there, this young man had absolutely no support in the courtroom at all. It's 2 young men whose lives just impacted each other. But no, he's pleaded not guilty. So we're looking at a year of trials.
in your trials. So the pain is still going to go on.
Yes.
Is there any advice that you could give? I know it's very hard. I mean, you can't prepare anybody for what you're going through, but is there anything that you could share with people who've been through this?
It helps to talk about it. It's not good to keep it bottled in. There are, like I said, agencies that you can speak to, whether it's group counseling, one-on-one counseling, no matter what part of the city you're in. If you reach out to Melany at Northwest Victim Services, she will speak with you. She will try to connect you with the appropriate people that you need to be connected with. But I would honestly tell people to get out and speak, ask for help, open your mouth, and let them know what's going on, because there are individuals out here that will help.
Anything to our local officials, police department, DA's office, politicians who create laws, anything that you would like to say?
I think you definitely have to have, I understand like the police, they are there to do the technical work to find out who actually did it, but I just think so much more has to be done to communicate effectively with the family. You know, as what Shamika said, you know, it was important to me that my nephew wasn't re-victimized. He was the victim, but just throughout the case, it was almost whereas everybody was treated as a criminal. So I had to really rely on Melany just to kind of walk me through this whole walk, because, you know, it was important that he wasn't where another black kid that's just killed and who cares. You know, he had a very loving family, and he was in his friend's house when this occurred. So I just think to those officials, you know, that they really need to give sensitivity training to whoever the detective is. If that is the detective that deals with the family, then they need a better or an effective bedside manner, and understanding that families are going through a lot and they can just help to make it easier. So what I wasn't really able to get from the police department, I was able to get from Melany. So from the tears to the, you know, at first I'm looking at her like, why is this lady here smiling, laughing, trying, but the whole thing is when you're grieving and you have someone who knows the way and trying to help you through the way to see the light. I think what happened with her is she was trying to get me out of being miserable about the whole scene that happened. So I just think that they just have to do a more effective, I don't want to say a better job, but a more effective job at communicating.
Well, thank you for your input. And ladies, thank you so very much for being on today's show.
Thank you.
I would like to dedicate today's show to all the victims who lost their lives to violence and to the survivors of the violence. Northwest Victim Services are here to help you. Please check out their website, northwestvictimservices.org, and their phone number, 215-438-4410. I would like to thank our guests for joining us today, and you, the viewers, for tuning in and being part of the solution with protecting our community. So until next time, remember, protecting our community is everyone's business. Keep those eyes and ears open.